Alright, welcome back to Edgier Than Thou, where the topics are so disjointed I can't even keep up with myself. Today we're going to be talking about a bit of film criticism, because I watch a lot of it, and I find a lot of what I watch to be very bad. Today I'm going to be looking at a couple of videos by The Critical Drinker, who is a very, at least seemingly, popular YouTuber. I've only watched like 4 of his videos, but I found them all to be pretty awful. So today we're going to be talking mostly about MCU criticism, because I find that to be a really interesting series of media to talk about, because there's a lot of really valid criticism of it, since it's incredibly committee designed, and a lot of it seems kind of soulless. But then you find people criticizing it for the most inane bullshit. So let's get into it. Because we're not crappy people here, we're going to try and be as good faith as we possibly can. I'm just going to go through, if you've seen the video, which you're infinitely more likely to have seen that video than you are to have seen this one, then assume that if I skip something, it's because I didn't find it worthy of discussing. I'll try and talk about the positives as much as possible. There aren't a ton of them, but I don't know, it's good to be positive when we can, so let's actually get into it this time. Alright, the first of these masterpieces we're going to be looking at is his video on Black Widow, at least the one titled Black Widow, Clumsy, Dumb, and Disappointing, I think it is. I don't know if he's made other ones, who cares. This one levies some pretty horrible criticism against a movie that, in my opinion, was like nothing to write home about, you know? Should be relatively easy to criticize, and he makes a couple of good points, but then there's some bullshit.
Strip away the big flashy production values, and you're left with an awkward, clumsy, amateurish kind of movie, trying too hard to be funny, trying too hard to be serious, and trying too hard to push ideas that feel played out and unimaginative.
Alright, first off here, we have what's a subjective criticism, but an understandable one nonetheless. I mean, you can't fault someone for feeling that way. Let's see how he substantiates it.
You can tell they really wanted this sequence to happen during the Cold War, but they couldn't get the dates to line up with the character's age, so instead we're lumbered with this weird mid-90s setting.
Hey, first off, that's actually kind of a valid criticism. It is pretty clear that they're going for a Cold War aesthetic, but then have to kind of supplement that with 90, I'm with you there so far.
Anyway, cue a frantic chase sequence where they have to escape the FBI.
Shield, but close enough.
In a light aircraft, because I guess the US government just kind of gives up on foreign agents the moment they get airborne.
Yeah, hey, wow, another actually, understandable criticism. It's a minor one, and the sort of thing that wouldn't completely ruin a movie, but yeah, it is kind of weird that they just take off in a light aircraft and then S.H.I.E.L.D. gives up on them. Next, he discusses the fact that Natasha seemingly needs an arms dealer to provide her with a safe house and with weapons and the like.
Why does someone like Nat need a fixer? Isn't she exactly the kind of person that would have safe houses all over the world just in case?
Okay, I don't know where this comes from. For one thing, Natasha does not strike me as the kind of person who's rich enough to just own like a dozen properties all over the planet, like just out of nowhere. And also it's established that in Age of Ultron that Clint needed S.H.I.E.L.D.'s help to set up a safe house, and presumably they're in a similar financial situation. I would kind of actually assume that he's in a better one than her, since he's been in S.H.I.E.L.D. longer and is more trusted by them. So yeah, I have no idea where this criticism comes from. It just kind of exists, I guess. Next we get into a lightning round. I'm not going to explain the context behind these unless I absolutely have to. We're just going to jump into it, and yeah, we hear some pretty stupid things here.
Wait, how the fuck did Skeletor know where Nat was?
Presumably Taskmaster, I don't know, tracked her through the mail or something. I mean, I don't think it's like that crazy that the international ring of spies would be able to track people down.
Why did he wait until now to attack her?
Okay, we literally have no idea how long Taskmaster has been waiting to attack her. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been a year and a half. Like, we have zero context for this other than what we see on screen. So, personally, it makes sense to me, actually, that she would attack at night when nobody was around and when she's not very likely to get caught. Because as you bring up later, she's wearing a crazy-ass costume and probably would stick out.
How was he able to track and recover the package when he didn't even know what he was looking for?
This is another criticism. I literally just don't know where it comes from. We don't know what she does or doesn't know in this moment. She could very easily know exactly what she's looking for. She could know what Yelena packaged it in. She could just be searching for the original package that was, I don't know, caught on camera or something. They literally run an international ring of spies. Like, of course they're gonna have information like this.
Why does he repeatedly spare her life when she clearly represents a threat to the success of his mission?
Now, I actually thought that this was one of the more interesting parts of her character. The fact that she was, like, so clearly programmed to do just one thing and then absolutely nothing else. It's get the package and get out. I thought that actually gave that fight scene a lot more intensity and intrigue, because it's so clear that Natasha's just completely meaningless here, and all that matters is that singular briefcase.
How is he able to travel the world dressed like fucking Boba Fett without attracting attention?
You know what? I'm gonna give you that one. Even though there's like a million different possible explanations for how she got around the world, I'm gonna give you that one because it is genuinely a little bit funny to think about.
Nat escapes with the canisters of red jizz because she was somehow able to remove it from its protective casing, hide it inside her jacket, and close the case again without Skeletor noticing in the half second it took for him to throw her off a bridge.
Okay, this is literally just shown in a shot in the movie. You see her, she like attaches Taskmaster to a cord, flings her off to the side, goes, and then opens up the canister with the pretty clear implication she's gonna put them in her pocket or something. I mean, I guess it didn't show her grabbing them and putting it, but she didn't do it in the 0.5 seconds before she's knocked off. It's the pieces are there. You just have to watch the movie. Next, he discusses a flashback in the film in which we see Natasha blow up Dreykov. I don't even know his first name. I don't even know anything about this guy. He's kind of meaningless to me. But again, we get another valid criticism.
Dreykov survived the attack. How? Don't know.
You're right. It doesn't make sense that he survived. Man, if only the rest of the video was like this.
Where exactly did the red jizz come from and who developed it? Don't know.
Okay, there's a line that explicitly explains this. It'd be really inconvenient if your next question were to answer this one.
How did the widow at the start get her hands on it? Don't know.
I wonder if there's a connection there.
The only guy who does know is the Red Guardian, who's now locked up in a Siberian prison. Why? Don't know.
Wow, another criticism that's literally explained directly by a line in the movie. I guess we don't see him go to prison and the fallout there, but it is told to us that Dreykov at some point betrayed him in some sort of meaningful and clearly emotional way. Do you need backstory for literally every single event? Is it that hard to believe that a former Communist Party member is now in prison? Is that, like, impossible for you to imagine? Really?
Their grand plan is for him to fight his way into the prison yard through dozens of guards and fellow inmates, and for some reason they're surprised when he's not able to accomplish this.
No. Their plan is actually for him to just walk calmly out into the prison yard, where they can then pick him up in a relatively short period of time between the guards noticing and them actually escaping. The reason they're surprised is because he makes a massive scene and then has to fight his way out. That's where the problem rises.
Don't you think you're asking kind of a lot from a single unarmed man?
Also, this is a minor nitpick, but he's a super soldier. It's not like just one random dude. It's established in his opening or introductory scene, at least in this part of the movie, that he is incredibly strong and that fighting off a bunch of people isn't that difficult for him. That's probably why he felt comfortable screwing things up the way that he did. Okay, this is kind of the end of the sort of pseudo lightning round I just had there. Next, he's going to tell us about how the plot doesn't make sense because both Nat and Yelena's parents or fake parents, are directly involved in the organization that they're all intimately involved in.
Wow, lucky that the two parental figures in their lives are both intimately connected with the man they need to kill now.
Okay, this criticism doesn't really make any sense to me at all, because this is like so fundamental to the plot of the movie. You might as well be saying, or asking, like, wow, it's kind of convenient that the Winter Soldier is directly tied to the villains of the movie. Like, yeah, yes, that's what the plot of the movie is. Like, this is just, all of these events are directly interlocking, and the movie wouldn't exist without any one of these elements. I don't know, man. I guess your suspension of disbelief is your suspension of disbelief, and I can't tell you otherwise. Next, we discuss a strange and, admittedly poorly introduced concept in the film, that being Dreykov's pheromones. They're not, absolutely ludicrous in the realm of film, and in fact, there is a pretty popular, at least relatively popular, Marvel villain whose whole superpower shtick is using pheromones to control people, so I don't know why this is the thing that you're attacking and not like Jessica Jones or something.
Couldn't you have just walked to the other side of the room or something? His pheromones can't extend that far.
I'm gonna confidently state that you did absolutely no research on this and just made that assumption. And in fact, since there's not a whole lot of conclusive research on human pheromones, it's very possible that he's got the coolest, most crazy, science fiction-y pheromones ever. Maybe they extend the entire planet. You don't know the answer to that. Also, it's explicitly pointed out that this is only effective in the Black Widows and not anyone else. It's anybody, it's some sort of a lock that he implemented in his own people. So, it could be something that extends all throughout the base. I don't know, man. Don't assume science fiction-y stuff in a science fiction movie.
Dreykov himself is one of the most underwhelming antagonists in Marvel history, and that's fucking saying something, believe me.
While this is subjective, I am inclined to agree with you. Dreykov was pretty lame.
The clear message is that most abusers are generally weak and cowardly once you strip away the veneer of intimidation, but it doesn't exactly make for a thrilling climax.
Okay, this is an interesting criticism that I think kind of gives us some more insight into the mindset of this particular person, and something that we may explore a little bit later. I don't know why you're so intent on having a cookie cutter film experience here. You're right, it doesn't make for a super exciting climax, but it's kind of more interesting to have a villain like that that's so manipulative and pathetic. I think that if this had been executed well, this would be something people would be celebrating as a complete shift from the norm, or divergence from the norm, I suppose. I just don't understand why this is such a bad idea in concept to you. I agree it was executed pretty poorly and he was pretty lame, but it could have been cool and that could have stayed the same.
If you were excited to see Red Guardian in this film, prepare to have your hopes shat on.
Okay, this is another, I suppose, subjective criticism that I actually completely disagree with. Red Guardian was probably my favorite part of this entire movie, even more so than Yelena, and she was definitely up there. So I know other people agree with me, so this clearly isn't the most popular opinion.
Isn't it funny how the only two male characters in this film are either portrayed as weak and pathetic or dumb and comical? Just something to think about.
You're right, it is interesting. It's also interesting that has kind of been the role of, not that specifically, but roles like that have kind of been the role of female characters throughout media, throughout all of film history. That's a pretty common if you notice this, you can't possibly not understand exactly why they might have done this or not put a ton of effort into getting a ton of male representation in this movie. It just makes sense. I guess if you want more male characters, I can't say you're wrong for that. That's fine if that's what you want, but some self-awareness at least, please.
Also, I have to admit I'm really confused about Melina, who I assume we're supposed to root for because she ultimately betrays Dreykov, but that doesn't change the fact that she's been complicit in his work for decades.
Okay, this actually gives me a chance to go off about something I really didn't like about this movie. You're right. Melina was a really, really weird character. She was incredibly morally dubious for most of the movie, and then she just kind of gets sad once, and then now she's good. So yeah, you're right, that is really weird. She boggles my mind that they wrote her the way that they did.
And at no point does she ever answer for these crimes or even really acknowledge them. It's all just conveniently forgotten about. Kind of like WandaVision, now that I think about it.
Okay, having not seen much of his video on WandaVision, I don't know exactly what he discusses about it, so I'm just gonna respond to this here. I feel like in WandaVision, that was pretty clearly established, the entire ending of the final episode, as rough as it was, that she's not a superhero anymore. Like, she literally at the end like decides to torture the main antagonist, if you can call her that, for like who knows how long. It's like, you're right that there weren't any direct consequences for her actions, but that's mostly because I think like the story isn't over yet. And he also uses the kind of cringy line from Monica Rambeau where she's like, you know, what was it? They'll never understand what you sacrificed for them or whatever. And I agree. That is kind of a cringy line, but it does kind of make sense in context with her character, since she also explicitly says that she would have done the same thing given her position. So hopefully they're gonna consistently write the character and they're setting her up to be kind of some sort of morally dubious, like maybe an anti-hero or something. That's what I at least gathered from Monica Rambeau. Now, they could fail at that. They could, you know, turn her into like a completely, you know, morally pure superhero and it could be completely dropped, but that would not be the fault of WandaVision. That would be the fault of future media. So I don't know, this just kind of falls flat.
I wonder if there could be a connection there.
Okay, I recognize that this could possibly be in relation to a point that he brings up later in the video, but I also kind of feel like he's signaling that these are two like female-led films slash TV shows, and that might be like the connection, that it's the whole like, you know, the anti-SJW angle. It's possible that that's not what he's going for, but if so, it took me a minute to make that connection. So you should, if you don't want to foster that sort of audience, you should make it clear that that's not who you're appealing to when you say things like this.
To understand how this film went wrong, I decided to find out a bit more about the people behind it, like director Kate Shortland, who I looked up online and found fuck all. In the past 20 years, she's directed a grand total of 3 obscure low-budget movies that I've never heard of. Why the fuck is someone like this directing a $200 million action flick?
I mean, without knowing for sure what went on behind the scenes, it does seem a little bit weird for you to only refer to the director's previous published work, because it's very possible that she's actually done a whole lot more that you're not aware of that would put her in this position. Or it could have been, I mean, you could be right, she could be someone who's not very qualified, but I also looked at the like reviews on the 3 films that she did, and all of them seemed, other than the most recent one, to be like, so I guess 2 of them were pretty positively received, with the most recent one being one that was like, I don't know, had like middle of the, I was like 75%, whatever, audience score. So, no, not audience score, whatever the other one is. I don't even know. I don't even care. But yeah, it just seems kind of weird that you're just basically basing this off of, I saw her Wikipedia page, it didn't have a ton on it, therefore she's not qualified to direct a film like this.
But what about the writing team, you may ask? Well, Jacqueline Schaefer did WandaVision, which kind of explains the very shaky morality here.
See, this is the thing that I think he might be referencing when he says, I think there might be a connection here between WandaVision and Black Widow. But again, it's just not clear to me, so I felt like I would point that out. This is the thing, just so that we're being charitable here, this is the thing I was talking about.
And she's got an uncredited rewrite for Captain Marvel.
Okay, so you'll note now that she has writing credits on 2 Marvel projects so far, so kind of makes a little bit of sense why she would be on another Marvel project, especially since Captain Marvel made them a boatload of money, and WandaVision, at least as far as I'm aware, was responded to fairly positively. Also, I somehow doubt that even if you hated WandaVision, that was out and reviewed and everything before they started writing for Black Widow. So yeah, I just figured I'd point out she has 2 Marvel credits prior to Black Widow already on her resume.
Meanwhile, Eric Pearson co-wrote Thor Ragnarok with the help of 2 other people, and that's it.
Okay, I'd like to point out that you do 2 things, or he does 2 things in here that are pretty weirdly dishonest. For one thing, writing is a difficult job. Writing a blockbuster movie is a difficult job. So I don't know why you add like with the help of 2 other people, as though that discredits his like work on the film. For one thing, you don't know who did the most writing, who like was the biggest visionary, so he could have literally written the vast majority of it and they just put in their like little bits of input. You don't know. You're just basing this off of what you envision, your little like fan fiction in your head. I guess that's called a headcanon. God damn it. But yeah, it just seems kind of weird that you're other than that, you also show this chart in which he has writing and screenplay credits on like multiple huge movies. A lot of them are listed as being uncredited, but clearly he's been in the door for a while, or in the room for a while, and might maybe be someone that Marvel has been eyeing as a more dedicated writer. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's my guess. Also, Thor Ragnarok was like really positively received, so a writer on that, being put on a writer for another Marvel project. Working it out. Yeah, no, that does make sense.
Basically, this film was made by writers and directors with no meaningful accomplishments to their names.
Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
Okay, the original cut of my response to this was just staring into the camera for like 30 seconds straight, because I do not know how somebody can be this obviously wrong about something that they clearly wrote some amount of scripting for and literally did look up on the internet and also showed in their film. The writers and directors on this, and director on this, have like multiple film credits, the director having the fewest of them, are directly involved with Marvel to a significant degree and have worked on some of their most popular and lucrative projects. So I don't know where the no meaningful accomplishments to their name comes from when you literally co-wrote Thor Ragnarok. Like I'm a little bit blindsided with this one, because all of the other stuff was stuff that like maybe if you just watched it once and weren't really paying attention, you could screw up and forget about, but like, holy shit, man. This is low.
Now, believe it or not, it gives me no pleasure to slate this film because I genuinely wanted it to do well. I wanted Black Widow to finally get the recognition she deserves.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of annoyed right now, so I'm going to say that I actually don't really believe you, because I don't think you would have interpreted it as insanely uncharitably as you did here. I mean, there are multiple things that I cut out of this video that were like already kind of off, but like, dude, if you wanted it to be good, you should have like watched it more than once before. Actually, you know what? No, I rescind what I said. You should have watched it before you made an entire video talking about how it explains absolutely none of the plot and is completely ridiculous in every way, shape, and form. Keep in mind, I didn't really like Black Widow very much. I've seen it twice. Like the first time I liked it just fine. Second time, like, I'm not a huge fan of this movie either, and I also wanted it to be very successful and wanted it to be great, but you have to actually want that in order to claim that you do. And if you watch the movie and you're like picking out every little minute detail and then telling me how it's like a major social issue and how it completely ruins the movie for you, and then you go and rewatch the movie and that detail's not even there, like, I don't know what to say to you. You should re-examine what it means to be excited and happy about something, because if this is what you think that is, I don't know. I don't know how to help you, mate. God, did I just say mate? You know what? Let's get into the next video. If that previous one was any indication of how bad this one's going to be, you would think, oh, well, all right, this next one's probably going to be fairly poorly argued, you know, relatively benign, and just a little bit intellectually dishonest. But no, this one is like unbelievably horribly evidenced, sourced. Like, I'm struggling to still comprehend how someone thought that it was a piece of media that they could film, then rewatch, then edit, and then actually publish to the internet. So this one is going to be his video called De-Feminizing Female Characters. It came out like just before the Black Widow one. So I've cut out a little bit of stuff in the beginning where he's like, oh, I'm on the way to watch Black Widow, and I'm just going to talk about the contents of this one. It gets into some brilliant biological essentialism, which is something that I would have hoped we could have left behind by now, because it's just like so poorly evidenced and is kind of valueless when evaluating media, but here we are. The context for the beginning of this, he is reading an interview with Scarlett Johansson, in which she discusses how she feels as though her earlier appearances, particularly in Iron Man 2, good God, as Black Widow, were kind of over-sexualized, and she wasn't given a full, fleshed-out, three-dimensional character. She was mostly treated as an object. She does so in the kindest way imaginable, however.
While Iron Man 2 was really fun and had a lot of great moments in it, the character is so sexualized, you know? She's really talked about like she's a piece of something, like a possession or a thing or whatever, like a piece of ass, really. What she's basically saying here is that she feels the character was treated as a simple sex object in her early appearances, and it's only recently that she's begun to come into her own and get treated as a fully realized human being in her own right.
Alright, stop the video there. Cool. Publish that, and we're done. That's great. That was an accurate representation of what she said. You repeated it back in different words. And I can now reread that interview and I can say, this person clearly read and comprehended what Scarlett Johansson was saying when she discussed her appearance in Iron Man 2. Brilliant. I'm glad that you understand, and you're not going to then, for the rest of this video, completely strawman her words and make her say things that she literally didn't even imply in her statements here. Cool. Good.
Freed from the shackles of sexual attractiveness.
Oh, and immediately after I cut it, we make shit up. She never said that she had a problem with being attractive or being portrayed as attractive in movies. Clearly she is, since everybody under the sun seems to think she is. But she wasn't talking about that. She was talking specifically about being consistently objectified and treated only as an object, a badass object, as it were, but an object nonetheless, and nothing else. So maybe you should refer to your previous sentence in which you outline exactly what she was saying, and not just add words that she didn't say.
Now, I have to admit, my first reaction to this was, Jesus, Scarlett, talk about biting the hand that feeds you.
What she said was probably the most lukewarm criticism I have ever seen somebody give of their, treatment in movies. She was like, this was really fun, I really enjoyed it, but I do think there were a couple of elements that were, a little bit harmful looking back. So it's not really so much biting the hand that feeds you, so much as the hand that feeds you giving you some, just absolute shit, and then you're like, oh hey, actually I would slightly prefer something else, but you know what, it's okay. That's a more accurate analogy. Now it's not as snappy or as entertaining or really very well thought out, but it's more thought out than what you said.
Your career was basically built on the fact that you were extremely beautiful, and you didn't seem to have a problem exploiting that for your own benefit.
I mean, I guess she's an attractive person in movies. I don't know her entire filmography, but to my knowledge, she's not exactly exploiting her attractiveness in every single film that she's in. She's actually pretty good at what she does, and that's probably why she's as popular as she is, because there are plenty of attractive actors and actresses that are not at the level that Scarlett Johansson is at. Also, it is perfectly fine for someone to question their previous decisions or to reflect on their life and discuss things they would have done differently. It is not hypocritical to levy slight criticism at the way that you and your career have progressed throughout your entire life. I'd also like to point out that oftentimes being used as a sex object and being used for your physical appeal are kind of the only option if you want to be an attractive woman in media, especially when she started out. So, I guess you could say in a roundabout way that she exploited it, but if her passion was acting and she wanted to be in movies and that was the only way to do it, it makes sense that she might then do the thing that she has to do. Sometimes people have to make compromises in order to do the things that they care about.
But now the big 4-0 is on the horizon, and I guess that stuff will become less of an exploitable asset over the next few years, so it's time to disown it as a dated relic of a different culture.
Okay, not that it's relevant, but I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of people would say that Scarlett Johansson has aged, particularly well. But even if that's not the case, her getting older doesn't really mean anything for the arguments that she's making, and in fact is pretty much just a dig, calling her ugly, except you can't actually do that, so you have to do it in a roundabout way, like, oh, well, someday you're not going to be very attractive, and that's why you're disavowing attractiveness, except you're not disavowing attractiveness or being attractive in movies, you're just disavowing the idea of being only attractive in movies, except you're not even actually doing that, you're just making a light kind of vague criticism of it and not even really attacking the idea all that much beyond, I would do this differently.
I'm pretty sure the whole point of Black Widow is that she's a classic femme fatale archetype. She's beautiful and sexy, and she uses those traits to distract or manipulate her male opponents.
I mean, that's a thing that she's done a couple of times, but the majority of her appearances haven't really been based in Black Widow, at least in the MCU, just like entirely sexualizing herself and then like distracting people as a result. I mean, that wasn't a huge focus of Avengers, besides I guess like the one like beginning scene that she's in, because I'm pretty sure she wasn't like flirting with Chitauri soldiers as they like chow down on New York. That wasn't like a major focus of Captain America the Winter Soldier. I guess they like kissed the one time, I don't know. She also spent like a small but significant portion of the movie wearing a mask of an elderly person, so I don't know, man. It kind of feels like maybe, just maybe, there's more to the character than sex with bad guy. Maybe.
Female spies have been doing this kind of shit for centuries, for one simple reason: it fucking works.
I mean, yeah, it does, and it's fine to portray that on occasion, but if that's the only way that women are portrayed as spies in media, then that's going to get, for one thing, stale really fast, and is kind of degrading to essentially just tell an entire subset of the population that if they want to be cool or like, you know, powerful in the context of a universe like this, that they have to be overly sexualized all of the time in order to do it.
One of her most valuable tools was her looks. Take those things away and you're basically left with a low-tier human Avenger on par with Hawkeye. Someone that can fight and shoot guns to a reasonable standard, and, well, that's it really.
Okay. So the problem that you have actually is that she is asking to be less sexualized without supplementing with anything else. Now, pushing aside that that's still bullshit and that you can have a non-sexualized female character that doesn't have superpowers and still be like logically consistent, I would hope then that your future criticisms of, say, the MCU or media in general are not going to be of incredibly powerful female characters, like physically superpowers, also not being over-sexualized, because if that's the case, then this is just kind of meaningless and you don't actually care about what you're saying. Also, Jeremy Renner is like pretty hot too, so I don't know why you'd like throw this dig in at him, but you do you, man.
See, there's been a real push in recent years to do away with any hint of femininity and sexual attractiveness in female comic book heroes, which is why we're going to be subjected to stuff like this.
But wait, she has superpowers and her character has never been about her using her sexual attractiveness in order to gain the favor of male opponents. In fact, she's one of the most powerful characters in all of Marvel media, particularly in the MCU, so I don't know why that would be something you jump to. Is it that your previous criticism was actually meaningless and actually it has nothing to do with superpowers and everything to do with women just having to be attractive to you?
That's lovely and all if you happen to be a blue-haired land whale, but is it really what people want to see on screen?
A lot of people actually want to see that. I'm pretty sure that if you were to like search people thirsting over Brie Larson, you'd get like a significant amount, even with the haircut you don't like there, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be more than, in your words, blue-haired land whales.
So I'll just come out and say it. Women aren't all that interesting to look at if you dress them up like a sack of potatoes. Just ask Kelly Marie Tran.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Not only is that just your opinion, your example that you give of Kelly Marie Tran is especially funny because for one thing, that is not the reason why people hated her. A lot of the reason centered around the fact that she, number one, isn't white, and number two, just kind of is a woman in Star Wars in general. That's why she got like bullied beyond belief. But I also showed that picture to somebody to see what they thought, and their first response was, "Holy cow, she's beautiful." So clearly it's not actually true that women wearing jackets makes them ugly. I know that that's probably new to you. It's new to me. I didn't realize that women can wear clothes other than skin-tight battle suits and nothing at all, but it turns out they can, and they can still be attractive, even though they don't need to be, particularly in a Star Wars movie, because it's not really what that's about, like, at all. Like, there aren't really any femme fatale characters that I can think of in, like, the main Star Wars universe. So yeah, you're just kind of fractally wrong there, and nothing that you say means anything or makes any sense. Does that follow? You got that?
Movies in general, and comic book movies in particular, are basically built on physically attractive people doing incredible things.
Are you sure?
Get out of here!
We want fantasy. We want a world where the incredible is possible, where dreams and nightmares can come true, and where people can transcend the limitations of our mundane existence to become more than human. Superhuman, if you will. And we want the character's physical appearance to reflect that change.
You know what? I don't have any actual empirical evidence to prove that you're incorrect in this statement, but I somehow doubt that you do either. Then again, it's possible that you actually despise characters like Deadpool and Darth Vader, and I'm just not aware of it. But somehow I doubt that's the case. I imagine that somehow there becomes an exception there. Isn't there? That's what I thought.
Handsome men and beautiful women representing the very best of what humans can be. That's literally the reason we get scenes like these.
Oh my god. Hey, it's another straw man of a thing that you read on your screen like a minute and a half ago. So no, she probably doesn't have a problem with scenes like that, because all of those, at least most of them, don't know anything about the DC characters, happen to characters who are fleshed out and three-dimensional. So them having scenes in which they are physically attractive actually has no bearing on whether or not they're well-written characters, and can be completely fine.
Yeah, somehow I doubt Scarlett has an issue with this kind of stuff.
And you just assume that.
For men, it's all about size, strength, conditioning, and the kind of masculine dominance that only sheer physical mass can give you, because those are things that women generally find appealing and men find aspirational.
Cool, and those need to be the case. Why exactly?
The thing is, women can't use size, strength, and physical dominance to get your attention because they don't have those things and they never will. No amount of diet and exercise is going to make an actress a foot taller and 70 pounds heavier, and even if it could, nobody would want to see her because those things just aren't appealing in a woman.
You know this how? Did you look into the mind of every single human on the planet and then empirically determine that none of them are interested in masculine women? No, you didn't? Well, I guess it's fine. We can just assume that's the case and then never investigate it any further. Or we can just make movies with multiple different characters, multiple different archetypes, and see which ones are successful. And then when we do that, we find out that actually people care a lot more about plot, character development, dialogue, than they do about whether or not their characters are hot. Mind you, I'm sure that some people do, but they're, generally speaking, probably in the minority, especially when it comes to superhero movies.
Those things just aren't appealing in a woman. The problem is that when you reverse that strategy and have women try to copy male characteristics, they usually end up looking exactly like what they are. Smaller, weaker, uncomfortable pretenders, desperately trying to be something they're not.
So I just did a Google search, because I was curious if you were correct, and it turns out you are correct. There are literally 0 large buff women. Not even one. I thought that there were. I thought that I had met them and seen them in my life. I thought that I had even seen dudes that were smaller than them, but as it turns out, every single woman is smaller and weaker than every single man, and there is no overlap. So yeah, no, I'm completely like red-pilled on this. I apologize for everything that I've said in this video, and I will be issuing a $10,000 donation to the incel charity of your choice.
Be careful what you wish for, Scarlet. Stripping your female heroes of their femininity and attractiveness might eliminate that pesky male gaze that you seem to find so problematic all of a sudden, even though you totally didn't 10 years ago. But it also takes away a pretty vital component of what makes them so appealing and interesting in the first place. And you may just find that without it, well, people just aren't that interested in you anymore.
And there it is. Again, I mean, in better words, women are not attractive or interesting to look at or interesting to watch in movies if they are not personally attractive to me, and in the specific and arbitrary ways that I've set out. And I will not be watching women, I will not be interested in women if they don't adhere to these particular archetypes that I have decided that they are required to adhere to. Thank you for making this clear to us. You definitely aren't even a little bit misogynist in this video. All of that is, I mean, if anyone ever accuses you of that, just remember it is like entirely SJW nonsense, and nothing that you've said could possibly indicate that you have some deeper seated issue with how women ought to act. And with that, I guess we'll wrap up this little critique session. I had a lot of fun with it. I found a lot of these arguments to be pretty damn poor. I might come back to this in the future, this particular YouTuber. I found some other ones that I'd like to do response videos to. I find it like valuable to have that out there, to be able to, you know, look at a particular video and then just find like responses to it. So I like to do those, and I love it when other people do them. My goal is, generally speaking, to go after stuff that isn't like already, you know, responded to by everyone, although I'm sure I will. I like having the videos out there, you know? So yeah, thank you for watching. You know, do the like and subscribe thing, comment. I will probably, at least in the near future, try to respond to everyone, at least if there's anything like worth responding to. And with that, I will see you in the next one, assuming I don't die.